Is Latin America poised for growth? While general economic and demographic trends are favorable for growth, there is one major obstacle that may pose big problems for the region: the lack of qualified talent. This is the subject we'll be discussing on today's installment of Regional FAQs, the podcast from Harvard Business Publishing that explores what you need to know about doing business around the world. Our guest is Al DeCarvalho, the head of Latin American sales for Harvard Business Publishing's Division of Corporate Learning. One point that Al came back to a few times during our conversation was that many businesses in Latin America seem set in their ways and have often repeated their old approaches to acquiring and growing talent, even though those approaches haven't proven to be very effective. What might make the difference today? The desire of Latin American CEOs to strengthen their companies significantly by becoming A players in a global marketplace. I started my conversation with Al by asking him to give listeners an overview of how the lack of qualified talent may be impacting the economy of Latin America.
Let me give you a quick background here. Latin America is a region comprised of 20 different countries with more than 600 million people. And the whole region faces a shortage of qualified talent. And this is across most of the professions. Could be professions such as computer science, engineers, doctors, managers, and many others. But it is important to keep in mind that this is not something new. For decades, the region have faced this challenge, and to this day, the problem remains the same. In the last couple of years, due to the slower economy or economic growth, this problem has been left on the back burner, so not many people are paying attention to it. But the largest economies such as Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico, and Colombia, they will face a significant challenge once their economies start to recover and the growth starts kicking again. I'm talking about probably 3.5% growth annually. That's going to happen because unemployment is going to go down, and that's going to be a problem.
Right.
A few years ago, the Manpower Group conducted and published an interesting research called "The Talent Shortage Continues: How the Ever-Changing Role of HR Can Bridge the Gap." And in it, they present very interesting figures that can be very helpful to organizations operating or planning to operate in the region. There are many multinational companies that would love to enter Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and other countries in Colombia. However, they don't have the expertise to enter those markets. So it's important for them to, before they plan and develop a business plan to enter the market, it's important for them to start reading about those things, because it's not just about the market potential in terms of customers and the revenue they will bring it, but also how they're going to do that from the talent standpoint.
Right. So when you say they like the expertise, you're saying they like the people. They like the talent.
Exactly. At the end of the day, that's what it is. The expertise is only, it's available through the people. If you refer to the people's brain, their minds, that's how do you get the expertise.
Right, so. Right. Yeah, I'm looking over this report, right, and the 2014 Talent Shortage High-Level Findings from the Manpower Report, right? And you see Peru, Argentina, Brazil, they're hugely in really bad positions. How do they get so bad? Why is Peru or Brazil so far? Why is it so difficult for them to find the right people?
Well, I think historically companies have not invested much in developing their people in Latin America. Instead, they relied on schools to provide the training.
Oh.
Okay, and the exception to this rule is when it comes to training for executives, for senior executives, as well as compliance with the local legislations. So companies, when they need new talent, what they did, they went out and tried to hire from the competition. That's one of the paths they followed.
Right.
Now, the problem with that, as you may know, you hire the competition, but if people are not qualified, it doesn't solve your problem. Right? The second one the companies use oftentimes is to go out and say, let's hire a bunch of new recent college graduates. Well, the challenge with that approach is that many of the universities, they're not equipped or prepared to train professionals to be ready to enter the workforce the day they graduate.
Right.
So they hire the graduate from the university, the person come in, the person is looking for a job. He or she may not have the greatest motivation. So the companies start feeling this pinch, this pressure on and on. So it doesn't really solve the problem.
So you handed me that World Economic Forum report, and it talked a lot about soft skills being at a deficit, right? They said emotional intelligence, communication skills, critical thinking, that was really at a deficit. Can you explore that a little bit?
Yeah, in Latin America, I think there's a cultural thing here. Latinos, they like to interact with people. They like to be friendly with people. They like to shake hands. They like to hug people.
Right.
And they think that's a skill. It's not necessarily a skill. There's a cultural aspect here.
Right.
And when it comes to developing skills that you need to perform, so like when you're working with a multinational company, let's say Embraer or LATAM, which is a multinational airline. So you need to have certain skills that you can deal with people in your own country, in the region, but also internationally.
Right.
So, and that's the thing. I mean, when they talk about communication, how you communicate with the people in Santiago, Chile, can be very different how you communicate with people in London,
right,
or in the United States. So that's what oftentimes the challenge the organizations face and the people face, is because they're not really thinking beyond what they are. They're thinking, okay, I can communicate well with my people, but they're not going beyond that.
Right.
That border.
So they're sort of stuck in South America in a way, mentally. They're not thinking, how would the Japanese or Middle Eastern people react to this? Right?
Exactly, and oftentimes they are not even respectful of other people's culture. People come in from other parts of the world. They come to their own country and they start talking to them and say, "Oh, these people are doing these things like, oh, this is completely different, completely outside of our norm."
Right.
Of course, people going to their country should respect their norms, but at the same time, if you are running a company, or if you're working as a computer science engineer, or if you're working as some position that require you to interact with people outside of your own current area.
Your own circle,
your
right.
own circle.
Right.
You need to have an open mind, not only when you're working, but also with everyone.
Right.
And that's not happening. That's the challenge the organizations face. And that gets into like the culture aspects and things like that,
right,
for the region as well as for the organizations.
So what's going to happen to business in Latin America if these shortages of qualified talent aren't met?
Yeah, organizations that are operating in the region, local and from other parts of the world, will face significant challenge if the problem is not addressed. And the problem has to be addressed by them. They need to be part of the solution. Okay, if they're not able to innovate. Basically, they're not able to innovate, which will hurt not only the business, but the region itself in the long term. They will not be able to improve their operations, which will hurt their margins, and will make it less attractive market or region for companies planning to enter the market, because they can't find a qualified workforce to do that. And because people are not innovative, the work goes around, the organizations are not being innovative in that part of the world. So why am I going to enter the market if that's the challenge that I'm going to face? And ultimately, it will have an impact in the local population, because job opportunities will be less. And when they find jobs, their wages will be lower, because it's be based on how they perform, what their productivity, their qualifications are. Right. So these are the kind of things that organizations need to think about as well.
Right. So how did you learn about South America labor market? What's your experience in this domain?
Sure, Mark. For many years, I have been involved in work in Latin America for many years. I was involved in developing a relationship with academic institutions in the region, like I say, top-notch institutions, as well as like mid-level institutions, maybe tier 2, tier 3 institutions. And but during the past 7 years, I have been working with companies to understand their leadership and talent development needs. Within that, I have to engage with them, with the manager and the senior management team, to discuss not only about the management team that are running the company, the senior management team, but also people running, let's say, a plant. These tend to be engineers. They tend to be technical people.
Right.
So for the last 7 years, I've been doing that, and to understand what their needs are, the gaps that exist within the organization, and then work with them to co-create programs to address those needs. Right. During this time, I had the opportunity to interact with faculty, deans, executives, and employees in many industries and different sizes. And almost in every country, the story is the same. The lack of qualified talent is a big challenge the organizations are facing in the region.
You go any industry.
Industry, pretty much. Well, there's some industries that they have figured out that, for example, the airline industry is an example.
Right.
If you think about the airline industry, they need pilots. Without a pilot, they cannot do anything.
Right.
And a pilot is a highly qualified individual. They require a lot of training, right, not just one time.
Right.
It's ongoing.
Right.
There's a new plane. The new plane comes, they need to be trained on how to fly the plane. It was a new model or whatever. So that's a big challenge for airlines. And yet, that's one sector that in Latin America, they don't have a problem. The airlines figure a way of training their pilots and an ongoing training. And they actually have a surplus of pilots as we speak. So right there. Another example would be the agribusiness industry. Agribusiness is booming in Brazil, Argentina, and Peru and Chile. They have different sectors. Brazil is like a lot of export of chicken and beef and soybean and corn. And Chile is more like the fresh fruit type of thing. But it's all within the agribusiness sector, right? So companies that have invested in training their managers and engineers and vets, the veterinarians, have really benefit in the whole economy and the populations benefit from that. So there's some sectors out there that actually are an exception to that.
And okay, you see agribusiness and airlines. Are people following those examples or not? Or if they're great examples, you think you'd want to follow them, right?
Interesting enough, yeah. I think people admire, like people are always talking about how great is the agribusiness in Brazil, how great they're doing, but no one actually take a step back and look and say what caused them to really be good as they are right now. What causes them to grow? What causes them to, even despite of the economies at times going in the opposite direction, they still continue to export their products.
Right.
So I think the organizations outside of those sectors, those industries, they're not really being cautious enough to say, let's take a step back here, see that we don't really fully grasp the challenge that we're facing. Yeah, let's observe what these guys are doing here on the agribusiness so we can learn from them, because at the end of the day, what's happening here, these organizations, they're providing a lot of training, ongoing training. I'll give an example, the airlines. The same things happen here with agribusiness. They're constantly, because they're using pesticides, new pesticides, and so on and so forth. So they need to be able to develop new techniques on how to use that, and also technology, new products, new seeds, and so on and so forth. So, but to do that, people are not going to really develop out of the blue. They need to be trained on how to do that, and that's what these organizations are doing. So, bottom line is that many organizations, like the financial sectors, for example, they're not really looking at, or technology sector, they're not looking at these industries that are being successful, seeing what's causing these industries to succeed, which is, at the end of the day, they're providing a development for their talent.
What are the common problems facing companies in Latin America that are looking for talent?
Well, I think the challenge here the organizations face are a couple of folds. One, there's not really a qualified workforce there for you when you look for the talent, right? That's a challenge the organizations facing. So the other one is the organizations have this cultural mindset, the mindset thinking that, okay, we are powerful enough. Think about Amazon. Amazon tried to enter Brazil, say we know everything, we're very powerful, they were growing. Everyone knows about Amazon. But when it comes to understanding the local culture, as I described to you before, people might be good communicators in the local culture, but when they interact with others, they don't. So the lack of the qualified talent can be a problem for these organizations, and they don't really find a ways of adapting to that. So you try to enter the market, you don't fully understand the market, people don't fully understand you, so you have like this gap in between the communication or whatever it might be. So that's a common problem the organizations encounter trying to hire people. Now, we talked about earlier how organizations go into hire recently graduates, but those people, they're not ready to enter the workforce. They're not ready to really perform. They enter the workforce, but they'll be performing at 60-70% of their capacity. And that's not what the organization should be looking for. The organization should be looking for, say, maybe can hire them now, but be more selective about hiring the people. Because then, once they do that, they can provide them with ongoing training, not one time, but ongoing for the long term. Develop them a career path. Provide them with a career path.
Which you're saying is not done a lot.
For the most part, no. There are a lot of ways organizations can address these issues. We can touch about this topic later. But yeah, right now that's not being done at all. Organizations simply just bring in one more body. So we need another. We have our productivity is at 80%. So we need to bring another number of people here to increase to 100%. What happened? They put another body there, but the body is not really solving because the person is not qualified.
And he's not productive.
He's not productive. So the cost for the organization will go up. But for the organization is not getting the benefit. That's a problem.
That's good. So is there anything that distinguishes Latin America from other developing countries that might contribute to the talent shortage?
Yeah, there are other factors that contribute to this shortage, like labor laws and unions, especially in Brazil. Company's culture, you get a job and it's good enough to get by, so employees don't always feel like motivated to improve or get better. I mean, it's very common in Latin America, like in Mexico and Brazil, where a company provide an employee with a food voucher. So you get a little card. Every month they load, let's say, a couple of $100 so you can buy your lunch every day. They'll give you an allowance for you to get your transportation and a bunch of other benefits. Some of these companies, they give you like a voucher for you to buy food for your family. So every week you can go, like every month you go to the supermarket and spend, $150, $200 on your grocery shopping. So people feel like so, involved and caught up in that little thing. They don't have a motivation to really innovate, to come up and say, I'm going to get better, I'm going to improve my life.
So you're saying that the companies are very sort of paternalistic? They take care of a lot of little things and people feel comfortable? Is that the...
That's to some extent. And some of that is a cultural thing over the years been growing, and people say, give me more benefits, give me this a little bit more here, a little bit more there. Right. And the companies may give that because of the government also sometimes. Some of these are mandated by the law.
Right.
Some of them are not. But when they actually are not mandated by the law, the companies say, let's give that to appease the population. The unions come in, they negotiate tough. They're very tough negotiators.
Right.
So they get those good deals, put them in the benefits package, and then once you put it in, it's very hard to take it out.
So talk to me very briefly about unions then, right? And they seem important players in this market for anybody coming in trying to start a business, right?
They are. I think the unions hold a lot of power. A lot of politicians, especially in Brazil and Argentina, they are powerful politicians. They are aligned with the labor unions. They're fully supported by them, and they are 100% aligned with them. So, and these people can have a lot of power when they're in Congress and things like that. Right. Now, labor unions, when they say, we're going to put a strike, they can pretty much stop the country. Like recently, early this year, the truck drivers, the union for the truck drivers, they pretty much paralyzed Brazil. Now, if you think about truck drivers going to strike for like 2 weeks, the effects on that in the nation is significant because pretty much everything stopped. The first 2 or 3 days, no problem, but then suddenly, on the third or fourth day, there's a shortage of gasoline because the trucks are not delivering gasoline to the gas stations. Right. And then a week later, a bag of potato that might cost, $5, suddenly will go like to $20. People are charging 20, five, 6 times more because the shortage is there. So suddenly the country can stop. So as you think about as an organization to enter those markets, or even if you are an organization operating these markets, it's very important to kind of figure out how can you work with these units. Not always easy. You cannot give them everything they want because otherwise they'll take their company and walk away. Right. But at the same time, you cannot go against them like say, I'm going to fight with these guys because if you fight, it's likely they're going to suffer significant damage for your reputation, your organization. Keep in mind, these are all people who are working, and they're also customers. If you are, let's say, Procter & Gamble, if you are Colgate, people are buying toothpaste, soap, and other things. So at the end of the day, they are your customers. Right.
So if you treat them badly as laborers,
they boycott
get back to you as customers.
Exactly. They could boycott you, and it could be a problem for you in the long term. So these are kind of things. How can you negotiate that? It's very tricky to do that, but it's possible to do. Many organizations are operating those markets now. General Motors and Ford and manufacturers, especially prone to the unions getting in and being very strong out there, and causing all kind of challenges for the organizations.
Right. So you have to be smart about dealing with them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
We all know about Amazon. When they tried to enter Brazil, despite being a powerful company, and they had like all these agreements, the location, they have everything selected, they faced some challenges. When they thought they had everything figured out, so now we're going to move forward with this, the politics stepped in. He was more like pro-labor union type of person. Right. But the person that was his predecessor, which Amazon negotiated a deal with, tax benefits and so on and so forth, was a pro-business. So that was just a change in power here, suddenly the whole thing changed, the dynamics changed. And that, then they had to rethink their approach. Not necessarily think we're not going to operate in Brazil, but it's more like where we're going to be operating. Should it still make sense for us to be in the south of Brazil, or should we move to the center of Brazil or to the northern Brazil? And that's, as organizations, when you're thinking about, you're planning 2, 3, 5 years in a row. Right. So all these things can, if you delay your opening your business by 2 or 3 months, can have a significant impact because all these are planned based on dates and things like that.
Right,
so, as you know, yeah.
So I'm just curious.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious. How did Amazon respond to that?
Well, Amazon, I don't know the final decision of Amazon, so I never really follow up. But there's a case study called Amazon in Emerging Markets that describe these challenges in more detail.
What can companies do then, given all these particular sort of challenges in this environment? If a company wants to enter there, or even companies in Latin America, what should they be doing to develop talent?
Yeah. Well, Mark, companies can do a few things. One of the important things, the companies need to change the mindset. The mindset of the management team, which ultimately will cascade down to the employees as well. And they need to do a good job, a better job of recruiting candidates that have a potential and are motivated, and then offer them quality training. That's going to be key. Okay. Hire the right people, offer them quality training, ongoing training, because you're developing this. This can be done by partner, and this training can be done by partnering with an external organization like a top-notch university.
Right.
Or can develop a good corporate university with good quality content they can acquire abroad, or maybe even local. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to just kind of keep doing the same thing everyone else is doing. That's not working. That's not going to help you. Right. But you need to be a little bit more creative with that. But you need to take that step. Right. And you start with a change of mindset that we need to kind of modify how we see it. A second thing they can do, they can offer incentives. Employees like incentives, not like the ones they're offering right now, like a voucher for a food voucher, a transportation voucher. I'm talking about like incentives and retention packages like stock options, profit sharing, because that helps motivate people to be productive, be innovative, be creative. So they can recruit and offer career growth opportunities and retain more women. That's another opportunity right here. Right. Historically, up until 30, 40 years ago, the man was the breadwinner in Brazil, and in Argentina, and in Mexico, right. And he's still managing households. And has changed a lot, but it's still a lot of opportunities for companies to hire women, give them the opportunity, because they're eager to become professionals, to professionalize themselves and be productive and contribute to the organization.
Yeah, I in that article that you gave to me about hiring women in emerging markets, right? They talked about how these women, many of them were very eager, right? They're very motivated, maybe because it's their opportunity to improve their families' lives, right?
Exactly. Women now, today, are exposed to things that they were not exposed 40, 50 years ago, right? Today you have a smartphone, so you can suddenly be communicating with a friend that went to school with you at high school, and now the friend might be, working in a different part of the country, very successful, say, I've done all these great things in my career. The woman suddenly become like motivated, say, I could do the same thing. There's a classmate, right. All these classmates, and I'm here sitting here in my house, just raising the kids. Nothing wrong with raising kids, but right. The idea is like they have a potential. But the companies are not leveraging that potential right now. Mm-hmm. They could be hiring these women. There's opportunities for them to hire, give them opportunities. If they're a young mom, can they work part-time, 20 hours a week, as opposed to working required. Got to work 40 hours a week, otherwise you don't have a job. Right. So these are kind of ways companies can create and innovate on how to get talent. Mm-hmm. And I think another thing, too, is hire top-notch universities and training companies from countries other than their own countries. This will bring new ideas and best practice on their training and development front. So that's important for companies to do that. They don't want to kind of repeat themselves what they have been doing that's not working, or what the competition is doing is not working either, because they're hiring people from the competition, those people are not trained, and it's a cycle, right? So they bring you outside providers, or at least some consultants. They can bring method that is not being used by the local competition, and this will provide the company with a competitive advantage in the long term. I think that could be a secret here as well.
And so it seems, though, that a lot of these companies might be sort of set in their ways. What do you think you can do to really make them make companies motivated to take on these talent training challenges?
I think it starts with if the company are really looking to become an A player, say, I want to be the leader of my industry, I want to continue to be a leader, or I want to continue to get better. Because if they don't, they run the risk of the competition eating their lunch. That's going to happen. With the world today, things are moving so fast, much faster than it used to. But how they motivate them to do that, I think it's come from the senior management team. The senior management team needs to take, and that's the leadership role. The leadership team, they have a responsibility to lead the organization. And one of the things that they need to do is that. And that should come when it comes to training and development and retaining talent. At the end of the day, human resources will do the implementation, but the vision, the planning, and the goals, all that has to come from the top. If the senior management team, the CEO and the vice president and the directors, they're not committed and they're not demonstrating a commitment to the rest of the organization that they're going to invest and going to help develop the talent, that's not going to work. They cannot leave that just for the HR. HR is one of the components and the piece of the puzzle. But at the end of the day, it starts from the senior management team, inspiring people to get better, inspiring people to be more innovative, inspire people to get out of their comfort zone. Say, hey, if I have now an incentive plan in which you give me, stock option, I can do better today. So a year from now, when I buy that stock, hey, I'll be making more money.
Right.
All right. As opposed to just waiting for that monthly voucher for my food and that kind of stuff. Right. I start having my own control. The leadership kind of help his or her employees to see the opportunities that exist within the organization. At the end of the day, that's the bottom line.
Right. Improve the organization, and your life will improve too.
Exactly.
Right.
And not only your life, your organization, but also the country that you're working on. And some of these are large organizations where they operate around the world. So give people the opportunity to rotate their employees. Say, hey, if you really perform well, you're doing great things here, you're learning, you have the opportunity to go from Brazil to spend some time in China, 1 year in China, oversee assignment or something like that. Right. There are a lot of ideas the organization can explore. Right. But you start from the senior management team. They have to be committed to helping the organization be a learning organization.
As Al DeCarvalho suggests, when the world is changing, you have to learn to change with it. We're hoping Regional FAQs makes an important contribution to your understanding of this changing world. So as times change, we'll update our programs and interviews as appropriate. So looking forward to exploring the world with you.